Minor characters are the absolute bread and butter of a good anime. They add to the world, make situations and scenes feel more expansive, can tell us more about the main characters, their motivations and interests, hint at wider themes, and show us just how truly rich and vibrant and sometimes heartbreaking the stories in which they feature are. Whether it's a story about an intense love for the sport of volleyball, shinobis trying to survive in a society that sees them as disposable, courtesans who are disposed of in a world after they are no longer useful, or pirates seeking to set and oppress people free, no matter the world and the anime, there is often a minor character that stands out to the watchers. And this right here is my list of 10 most unforgettable minor characters in anime that I love. And we'll start right off the bat with Martha Marriott, who is the Black Belt family's butler and also primarily Becky Black Belt's caretaker in the anime Spy Family. We first meet her after Anya befriends Becky, or rather more aptly, Becky befriends Anya, and the two develop a close bond that has them heading practically everywhere together, with Martha often accompanying them, radiating a quiet, pleased joy at her mistress having found herself a best friend. She's also very protective of Becky, especially in the Red Circus arc when she was ready to step in to help save her charge and the other Eden kids, and the story establishes that she's quite the competent fighter. But it isn't until the most recent manga chapters where we learn more about her past that made me realize that there's so much more about Martha Marriott that we had no idea of. The fact that she doesn't actually hate the West because she was saved by a Westalis woman who nursed her back to health and sent her on her way with enough supplies to get her home had me crying. I love that she has so much hidden depth, that she has someone who she's crushing on and has always crushed on. Not going to go into details of the who, because if you're an anime only or haven't gotten to that part of the manga, I want you to be as surprised at the reveal as I was. But seeing Martha have these experiences, realize that both sides of the war are filled with sons and daughters who would never make it home, having her get a front row seat to how unfair war is and how their superiors are often quick to sacrifice the lives of their soldiers to gain any sort of advantage, regardless of what these soldiers want, just cemented for me how expansive a world and an experience a minor character can have that we have no idea of until the writer chooses to pull back that curtain. It's a brilliant case of character writing and makes Martha Marriott an even more unforgettable character. Then there's Isho, also known as Fujitora, one of my absolutely favorite admirals in One Piece, second only to Aokiji. We meet Fujitora when the Straw Hats get to Dressrosa after news got out that Luffy and Law had formed a pirate alliance, and Akainu sent him over to investigate. After Luffy points out without knowing Fujitora's true identity that the Don Quixote pirates were cheating him in a game of roulette that he was playing with them, Fujitora thanks him and heads on his way to meet with Doflamingo, who wrongly assumed that Fujitora was there to protect and serve his interest. Fujitora, however, unlike a lot of the admirals in One Piece, lived by his own code of humane justice, and that is what we see in practice to such brilliant effect in the course of the entire arc. The minute it is revealed that he willingly blinded himself in sorrow at all the injustice he's seen meted out on the world, and so he decides to become an admiral to work within the system to change it and bring justice, humane justice to the world, is the day he cemented himself as pretty unforgettable in my book. Here is a man with such immense power and yet who is so humble and kind, especially amongst the admirals. Of course, he would become an absolute favorite. He stood by his words, he stood by the people of Dressrosa, he helped protect them, reminded the Marines that they should always factor in human cost, as it makes no sense for them to needlessly kill innocent people for the sake of capturing a criminal. And when the truth of how Doflamingo was able to attain power over Dressrosa was revealed, he apologized publicly to King Rikudaldo III on behalf of the Marines and the world government, something that Akainu loathed. Just that scene of him saying that he wished he hadn't blinded himself because he would have loved to have seen Luffy's face makes me cry at random times during the day. Fujitora will always be a fave and will never be forgotten, even if he does have an annoying habit of dropping meteors all willy-nilly. Then there's the Madame of Verdigris's house in the Apothecary Diaries, who keeps trying to get Mao Mao to become a courtesan despite the latter's objection to the potential job offer. Now, I know a lot of people might not be so fond of her after we realize her exact ties to Fengxian and Mao Mao later in the light novels, especially with what happens with Fengxian. I don't want to go into details for those who haven't watched the Apothecary Diaries yet, which if you haven't, what are you doing? Go watch it right now. But yes, because of how events play out with Fengxian, a lot of people might not be so fond of her, but I think she was a woman of her time and she did her best with what she was given and what she had to do. Fengxian played her cards, and unfortunately they didn't fall where she hoped they would, because that is life. But the Madame did try and come through for her. Now, the reason why she's particularly unforgettable for me is more than the running gag of her consistently asking Mao Mao if she's finally ready to become a courtesan, but more because of her story. The minute we get the revelation that she was the beautiful dancer whose beauty was compared to a celestial maiden, I was hooked. I wanted to know more about her story. How did she go from courtesan to running the place? What choices did she have to make? What sacrifices were put in place to get her to where she is when the story starts? How did she handle being a mother? Is what happened to her similar to what happened to Feng Xian? Is that why she took the decisions she did? I am fascinated by this woman who is so miserly but still takes a young baby Mao Mao in and raises her until Loma adopts her. I'm curious about this woman who, although makes enough money from the three princesses, still hounds them to get married or think of what they want to do next so they can get out of the job. I love how much she loves money and how she's always plotting for ways that Mao Mao can bring more customers to Verdigre's house. The Apothecary Diaries is chock full of unforgettable minor characters, but she stands out particularly well to me, as does Satori Tendo. Now, if like me, you're a fan of Haikyu, and honestly, who isn't? It's a great sports anime and manga that speaks to the heart and love and devotion these characters have for volleyball, with themes of found family and shared interest and competition to become better at the sport that takes everything from them and gives it right back to them. I love IQ. And as a sports anime, it is filled, brimming with minor characters, both characters on the Karasuno volleyball team and characters in the opposing teams. And let's not forget the family and friends of these different characters as well. Everyone is connected in some way in the world of IQ, and everybody's story is running in the background. IQ forces you to not just care only about the Karasuno team. I have met people whose favorite IQ character can be found in different schools. Now, that isn't me. Hinata Shoyo will always be my favorite IQ character, followed closely by Kageyama Tobio and Oikawa Toru. I am basic like that. But my most unforgettable minor character in IQ, however, is Tendo. I love how he's funny and loud and can be just mildly creepy at times. I love how he's this oddball who is intense and great at volleyball when he's on the court, not because he's as intensely obsessed with the sport like Hinata or Kageyama or Oikawa or Shijima, but just because it's something he is good at, and to while away the time until he graduates and move on to something else. Because IQ is filled with so many brilliant, talented players who go on to play professionally later in the story after we get the time skip, which am I still miffed that we probably won't have that animated because IQ is only coming back with 2 movies and that's all we get? Yes, I am still miffed. Why is this happening to us? We deserve to see every drop of sweat on screen, damn it. Okay, sorry, I'm calm now. Back to Tendo. As I was saying, IQ is filled with so many brilliant, talented players who go on to play professionally later in the story. And then there's Tendo, who, although is talented and brilliant, is like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to be a chocolatier and make yummy treats and remain besties with Ushijima and film the weirdest interview segment ever filmed talking about friendship, and I just love his ass. Tendo for me is a breath of fresh air. Also, I find his character design utterly fascinating. Next up is the character that had me bawling my eyes out in Naruto early years. Yes, I am referring to Momochi Zabuza, the demon of the Eden Mist, the terror of Kirigakure. When we first meet Zabuza, he seemed just like any other Naruto villain we had met up until that point. He was brutal, wielding his giant sword, Kubikiri Bocho, with such ease and skill that the first time I saw him, I found myself genuinely worried for Team 7. He seemed cruel and cold, he was arrogant, he was aggressive, he seemed ready to sacrifice everyone and everything to get his goal, which was to ultimately overthrow and kill the Mizukage so he can rule Kirigakure. I was convinced that he was the absolute worst and could not figure out where Aku's loyalty to him stemmed from. Like, sure, he saved Aku as a child and raised him, but it seemed like he did it more for his own benefits, to use Aku's skills and abilities to serve himself and further his aims. And maybe that's what it had started for him initially, but then in the fight with Team 7, we realized that Zabuza might have become disillusioned because of how their world treats shinobis as tools to be used and discarded after they've served their purpose, and that is a major theme in Naruto. That Zabuza was right in his anger. Maybe the way he chose to execute his goals wasn't right, but the root, the why of it was understandable. And in the course of the fight with Team 7, we slowly see that Zabuza isn't the heartless shinobi that he's been presenting himself as so far in the arc. Kakashi points out that Zabuza was hesitant about stabbing him because he would have to cut through Aku to do so. And then we see Zabuza cry and mourn Aku after he dies and ultimately sacrifices himself so he can be somewhat worthy of being the man, the type of person that Aku sees him as. It just wrenches my heart every single time. And his conviction and final stance was so instrumental to Naruto's story that when he is reanimated in the Fourth Shinobi War, Kakashi admits the tremendous impact his and Aku's loyalty to one another had on Naruto's growth as a shinobi. Zabuza will always be a standout in Naruto for me, even with the many amazing minor characters we got in the story. And maybe I just have a thing for characters who maintain close bonds with their friends and people they look up to and are loyal to them to a fault, because the sixth unforgettable minor character on my list is Madarame Ikkaku, the third seat of the 11th division and the best friend of Ayasegawa Yumichika. From the first moment we see him and his bald head, his shaven head in the Soul Society arc as he challenges Ichigo, I was sold. Here is a man who fights for the love of it, a complete meathead who can be stubborn to a fault. I mean, he was the one who demanded that Zaraki kill him after he so badly lost their fight, but by the time he fights Ichigo, he's much calmer, more gracious with his defeat, and warns Ichigo about his captain. The fact that Ikkaku keeps a limit on his Shikai and Bankai because he loves fighting under Zaraki so much and knows that if his true strength is ever revealed, he will be promoted to become at the very least a vice captain of another division, makes him such a compelling character to me. Honestly, with how much I love Kuchiki Byakuya, my favorite division in the Gotei 13th isn't the 6th, it's hands down the 11th division. Every single one of them has this absolute loyalty to Zaraki and fight like mad people with the joy and thrill of the fight, pushing them on, except for Yumichika, of course. He hides his true abilities so he can stay with his best friend, who also hides his true abilities so he can stay underneath their captain. But yes, that Ikkaku will always choose to die rather than show off his abilities because he cannot imagine or dream of being in any other division, that he and Yumichika both will go to the ends of the earth and the bottom of hell itself to remain with their captain, makes them both unforgettable characters. I know I'm cheating, but I just have to slot in Yumichika there because he's just as unforgettable as Ikkaku in my book. Then there's Testarossa in That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, which was quite a hard decision for me to make actually, because just in case you're seeing my channel for the first time, I think about Tensei Slime for an inordinate amount of time. My last anime video was me talking about the 10 things that Rimuru can teach business owners about running a successful business. I am that obsessed. So it was a bit difficult for me to decide on who my most unforgettable minor character in the story is. And I know I'm cheating a bit because although she's been mentioned and referenced in the anime and manga, we don't really see her until the light novels. But what can I say? I have Testarossa fever. So for those who don't want to be spoiled about her just yet, I have timestamps on so you can just move on to the next entry on the list. Thank you. But back to Testarossa, I find her particularly unforgettable because Testarossa is the living embodiment of looks like a cool, quiet queen and would utterly eradicate you. She has a brilliant blend of military prowess. She's one of the primorders who can fight almost evenly with Diablo. Although technically, I always wondered if he was fighting to the best of his abilities or just being Diablo and not taking the fight seriously. But yes, she can fight almost evenly with Diablo and has the smarts and brilliance to be Rimuru's foreign affairs minister, weaving this delicate web of power and superiority over the members of the Western Council, who she saves and then basically has them swear allegiance to her and by extension Rimuru. Nobody quite machinates like she does. Like, Diablo is great at making power plays, but Testarossa is just in a league of her own. She's a female character with the 3 B's: beauty, brains, and bronze, and she has me in a chokehold. And then we have Merin from Kuroshi Fuji, also known as Black Butler. Yes, I have a thing for anime with butler characters who also happen to be demons. Sue me. I do think though that in a battle of the demon butlers, Diablo is trouncing Sebastian's ass, but that's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. Anyway, away from Sebastian to my most unforgettable minor character from the story, who is Merin. Just as with Tendo, I really love her character design. I think some of the most badass scenes are when she has a sniper rifle out and is ready to cause as much death and destruction as possible. What makes Merin exceptionally unforgettable for me as a character is the way in which Yana Toboso has written her. Merin is both clumsy and a fantastic shot. She's loyal and devoted, can be vain in how she prizes the glasses that Ciel gave her and refuses to remove them. But she also knows when her vanity isn't needed, and so she removes the glasses when she's putting her sniper skills to use because they affect her sight. Which meant that the first time we saw it happen, and it clicked for me that the reason why Merin is so clumsy is because she can't see with those damn glasses on. They are actively impeding her sight, and she has them on anyway because she's so grateful for the glasses she was given and the job to work as a maid and the chance to serve Ciel and Sebastian. And I just love that about her and her characterization. Here is someone who actively took down the circus members who attacked Phantom Hive Manor with such cunning and precision, and yet was bawling like a baby because she thought that Sebastian had been murdered in the Manor murder mystery arc. I just love the duality that she brings as a character. Utterly unforgettable. Then there's Wang Xiaotian from the Chinese animation of the book The King's Avatar, which is one of my favorite esport novels ever. Wang Xiaotian is the vice captain of Team Blue Rain, and I love him to bits, to eternity and back again. Now, The King's Avatar is a book with over 1,700 chapters. The Donghua, though, only has 3 seasons, so no need to panic. But with a story of that magnitude, it comes as no surprise that the world of The King's Avatar is filled with a plethora of characters. It is an esports story after all. So we have the different teams with their many players. We have those who are overseeing and running the teams. We have the fans, the coordinators, those who manage the guild. It's a lot. And yet with all the many characters, Wang Xiaotian stands as the fast-talking, can never shut up vice captain of Team Blue Rain. He's loyal to a fault. He's always rooting for our main character, EHL. If anything, because he gives him the opportunity to beat him in the game. He's lovable and is easily manipulated by EHL to help the latter in accomplishing his goals, but he's a great friend ultimately. And I love Wang Xiaotian. Few characters in The King's Avatar as guileless as he is, and maybe it's just because I was accused of talking too much as a child, but I do have a particular fondness for characters who talk a lot in stories. Find you someone who does not, at the very least, remember Wang Xiaotian and his motto mouth, and I will point you to someone who never actually paid attention to the story. And finally, we have Yoshino Junpei from Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen is one anime with a myriad of minor characters that are unforgettable. Gege Akutami is a master at telling compelling stories and writing unforgettable characters because Jujutsu Kaisen is swimming in them. But the reason why Junpei stands out for me amongst the rest and why I would never forget him is because Gege Akutami used him to teach us, the viewers and readers, a pretty unforgettable lesson in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. People will die and you won't be able to save them, no matter how hard you fight and how much you struggle. Junpei stands as an unforgettable character for me because it is through him that I realized that this world is one that is so harsh, that is so unforgiving, that will do everything to make sure that you don't see justice, get a second chance, and be anything but a pawn in the hands of those more cruel and more powerful than you. It broke my heart, shattered me into many pieces. There are a lot of deaths in Jujutsu Kaisen that have hurt me and cut me deeply, but Junpei's will forever hurt me in a very irrevocable way. And those are 10 unforgettable minor characters in anime that I love. What about you? Do you have a minor character in an anime that you love and can never forget? Maybe in one of the animes I just mentioned. Do drop their name in the comments. I'm always looking forward to new animes and new characters to fall in love with. If you enjoyed this video, then consider liking it. Share this video if you like what I had to say. It all helps grow my channel and is supportive of my content. Speaking of support, a huge thank you to my patrons, without whom I wouldn't do this really. If you want to be a patron and can afford it, the link is in the description box. I make new videos 3 times a week. Mondays are for anime manga content. Wednesdays are for my movies and TV shows. Fridays are for anything I want really. New videos drop at 5 p.m. EST on upload days. Whilst you wait for new content from me, consider checking my 10 lessons that Rimuru Tempest can teach you about running a successful business video. Until next time, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.